afternoon, everyone. Mike Kuzmiskas here, president of Ichor. I wanted to make a video to chat with you and answer a number of questions we've been getting from people in these communities that we're doing pop-up clinics in. From my own mouth, just to explain why we're doing this, why we feel this is important, why we think you should feel this is important. It's just easier to hear somebody and see somebody talk than to read an email or a document. So the basis of all of this, and my firm belief since the beginning of COVID, is that natural immunity is real. So natural immunity implies obviously catching COVID naturally without having any vaccines and recovering from it, forming antibodies and underlying B and T cell cellular immunity. People who, as an example, people who contracted SARS-1 back in 2002 to 2004, they still, 10, 15 years later, were testing positive on the cellular immunity tests, the T cell tests. And essentially, if you've established that natural immunity, it is far better protection, longer lasting. It doesn't care about variants against the virus. So establishment of that natural immunity right now, unless we get this T cell test going here soon, right now, the only good test available is a spike protein antibody test in Canada, which is what we have. A number of labs in Canada have a qualitative version, right? It just gives you a straight positive, negative, and that's fine. But the semi-quantitative test from Mayo Clinic Laboratories is one step further, and it quantifies that the antibody titers, or how strong your immune response and your protection may be. So on an individual level, to answer the first question, is this test accepted for anything? No, it's not. You can pay your $120, you can get this test result. You can wave it around individually as loud and long as you want. Currently in this environment, not good for anything. The government doesn't recognize it, federal government doesn't recognize it, businesses don't recognize it, right? So know that going in, that as an individual, that test result does nothing for you right now. The purpose of the pop-up clinic and the community-based approach is going back right to the start of the pandemic, when Health Canada and other governments were saying the goal is to reach herd immunity, right? The goal is to have a high enough percentage of people in the community that are protected from the virus, that they inherently protect others who have not been vaccinated or have not encountered COVID from the virus. And at the time, at the very beginning, Dr. Tam said, I believe it was 75% needed to be reached for herd immunity, in their opinion. And then it went to 85, and then it went to 90, and here we are. So the goal of this community-based pop-up is to have the community come together and do a high enough test count or percentage of the population, with the goal that your cumulative test results from everybody can demonstrate herd immunity. So in the Crete, we saw this, right? We had 1,200 people get tested out of a population of roughly 3,800, 3,900. So roughly a third of the town. Very good sample size. 89% positive. Unvaccinated people tested 89% positive for antibodies, meaning they had a very high level of natural infection and recovery and immunity. So they have some paper now as a community to demonstrate and push back at the government and say these mandates, these lockdowns, they are not justified, because we can show you 143 papers that show natural immunity is superior to vaccinations, and we have a very high percentage of it. Therefore, we are going to push back and challenge your mandates on the basis that they are not required and they're not scientifically justified. That's the point of this. So from a business owner's perspective, yes, I'm selling tests. Yes, we make money selling tests. As I've said before, if we're the only ones in Canada offering this test, we could be charging $300, $400, $500 for this test, and we're not. We're charging $120, which covers our costs, right? We have 60 employees, we have a whole bunch of costs. It covers our costs and leaves us a little bit of profit on the top, because we are a business and we don't survive if we don't make money. Now with these pop-up clinics, what we just did in Three Hills, once we know what the turnout is, what our costs are, if the profit margin for us is substantial enough that we're happy with it, I've been putting a portion of that back into the program and offering subsidized tests for people who can't afford them, which is where the wait lists are coming from, is because I am fully vested in this exercise as well. I want to help communities gather data and gather evidence to push back against these mandates. So a part of that is we're in this with you. We're donating some of these tests back. We're putting some of this money back into the pot. But if the turnout at these clinics isn't high enough, it's useless for everybody. We don't make any money. The community can't say that you've herd immunity. If you have 80 or 90 people show up and your population's 6, 7, 8,000, no value. No one's going to look at that and say, oh, that's interesting. So at that point, there's nothing. So I understand that $120 is a lot to drop on a test that essentially by itself does nothing for you. Totally get it. But try and keep the bigger picture in mind, right? You have this freedom convoy. There's thousands of people that are putting themselves out there to fight for medical freedom, medical autonomy, individual rights. This is an arm of that argument. This is an arm of it saying that mandates, forced vaccines of any kind are wrong, but especially if the science doesn't support what's happening. And in Lacrete, the science does not support mandates and forced vaccinations. They have a very high level of herd immunity, regardless of what CBC is going to tell you about how illegitimate I am or about how I don't know what I'm talking about. It's true, and it's science, and it's the fact. And you can find any amount of evidence on this yourself on the internet if you spend the time. So this is the exercise. In addition to this, we obviously are more than just a COVID company. And so we have a lot of tests, again, working with Mayo Clinic in Rochester. We have a lot of tests that we have access to, almost their whole roster, that we want to start offering to Albertans, because that's why I started Ichor. So part of the reason I started it was we have I hope I don't offend anybody, but we have a very terrible healthcare system right now. It's poorly funded, it's understaffed. It doesn't take much to put it over the tipping point, which is what you've seen with COVID. I've always been a fan of two-tier healthcare. I had 2 elbow surgeries and a back surgery outside of the public system that I had to pay for out of pocket, but I wouldn't do it any other way. So I believe that people should have the ability to access health and access tests on their own dime. And this is what this is. So when we come to your town and we're doing these pop-up clinics where the main purpose of it is antibody testing, you can also get D-dimer testing to check for blood clotting factors. Great example of this. We had somebody come into our clinic in Calgary. It was a family of 3, husband, wife, and a daughter. And they came in, they did their D-dimer test. 2 of the individuals were in range, and one of them was more than double what the reference range is. So if the reference range, if you're under 500, it's considered normal. This individual was over 1,000. Got that test result back. Big red flag, almost imminent chance that something is going to happen. Go have a chat with your doctor. Massive value provided to that individual that you wouldn't really get otherwise, right? Testosterone testing or follicle stimulating hormone testing, Lyme disease, vitamin D, all these things you can't readily access right now. And that's what we're trying to bring. So when we come to your town, this is what's available. The antibody, that's why we're doing it. These other tests, that's why we're doing it. We're trying to change and improve healthcare in Alberta. So hopefully this helps explain why we're doing who we are, what we're doing. We're not just in this to make a quick COVID buck and get out like a lot of these pop-up testing companies are that have sprung up around town. We're in this for the long haul. We're trying to build a client base. We're trying to build a reputation. We're trying to fix healthcare and improve healthcare. So that's what this is about. Obviously, we're on Telegram. You can find us at Ichor Health on Telegram. That's where most of my updates come from. You can always get a hold of us on our live chat function on our website. If you go to our website, ichorblood.ca, and you wait about 10 seconds, a live chat feature pops up on the bottom. There's a support inbox as well. Ultimately, anything that really our customer service team can't answer or feels needs to come to upper management will come to myself or to Sean, and we can address those directly, and I try and connect with people as much as I can. But this is the goal. I'm in this fight for medical autonomy and medical freedom as hard as anybody. This is why we're doing it. Please keep this in mind. Please do your best to spread the word in your towns and make this as successful as possible, because this might be the only chance that we as Canadians have right now to mount a defense against what's going on. If you have done your research and you believe in the vaccines and you want to get them, good for you. That's your freedom and that's your choice as a Canadian. What we want to avoid is the opposite case where other people's decisions and abilities to make those decisions are being taken away. And that's what this fight is all about. So thanks for tuning in. Thanks for listening. If you have questions, you can get a hold of us in all those ways I talked about. If you are in a town that doesn't currently have a pop-up clinic scheduled, please reach out to our customer service team. What we are doing is putting out wait lists that aren't tied to any sort of payment. It's just a link that people can click to sign themselves up to say, if you came to town, I would join the wait list. And once we have a strong enough list, I guess, or sign up in that area or that town, we'll schedule something in and we'll come to town, and we could come for 1, 2, 3, 4 days. It really depends on how many people you need. For a one-day clinic, to justify a one-day clinic, you got to have 150 to 200 people, basically. We send our team, we bring all our supplies, all our equipment, all that stuff. So that's sort of the threshold. So if you think you have 200 people that would sign up for this, reach out to us. I'll put a form together. You can circulate it, and stay tuned on the website. We're going to be posting results from all these towns as we go as well. And hopefully we see your town on the list and we see you on our results sheet. All right. Be well, everybody. Take care.